Peter, do you think you're ready?
I'm as ready as I'll ever be.
Okay. Well, I was gonna give you a great introduction, but I think everybody here already knows you much better than I could ever introduce you.
Okay.
So I don't think there's much sense in that. So I'll just say that Peter has agreed to give us an update on the status of the Valley Unified Strategic Plan. And we've been waiting 2 years for this update.
We've been trying to get this going for a while now. Yeah.
So without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Peter. Thank you, Peter.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you, Bill. I really want to sincerely say that it's a pleasure to be here for a couple of reasons. And number one is I remember fondly the being part of the initial efforts to bring the St. John Valley Senior College to fruition, and I believe I'm still a paid member. And proud to be a member. Or no, I think I'm a member of the Greater Fort Kent Senior Center, and not necessarily of Senior College any longer. But nonetheless, think of it very fondly. And every time I see your flyer, your leaflet come out, it's gratifying to see that it continues to go and grow. And I was especially impressed that you were able to keep things going through the pandemic. So, I mean, kudos to you. It's nice to see a program like this endure, and to see the broad cross section of programming that you offer. And I'm excited because the Tri-District Strategic Plan, right-sizing education in the Upper St. John Valley, is something that I've been actively involved in for nearly 3 years now. And I'm proud of the fact that we remain focused on the goals and objectives embodied in that plan. I don't know how many of you were here earlier, but I was reminiscing about how many years I've been involved in education at the higher education level, public school level, continuing, and adult education at the state level, and been part of a lot of strategic planning initiatives. And oftentimes they make for a real nice looking report that ends up on a shelf. And I'm really proud and pleased that this one hasn't been shelved, and that we revisit it regularly, and we keep our focus on it. And so I'm excited to be able to share with you where we are with that. And if you bear with me, I'm just gonna go in and hit share screen, and I'll call up and then open. Yeah, I hope I'm opening. Yeah, open a Google Slides presentation that I've prepared, so that I can spare you the agony of seeing my face for an entire hour. I did that at Don Murray's request, but only because his wife Reggie asked me to do it as well. So just want to make that clear, Don. Okay, so let me just start by revisiting what the impetus was for the development of a tri-district strategic plan. And that planning process was authorized by the school boards and the school committees of SAD 27 and SAD 33 and the Madawaska School Department during the 2015-2016 school year. And the charge was to see if we could improve opportunities and outcomes for our students, our staff, and our communities by researching fiscal efficiencies, and specifically doing that by discussing how we could share resources. And really the big push to do that came as a result of 20 to 25 years of declining pupil enrollments, not only across the region, but in each of the school units. And the fact of the matter is that total pupil enrollment in one 20-year period had declined by over 1,000 students, or about 40%. And although we were seeing that that was going to flatten for a while, there was no telling how long that would last. And we had to face the reality that total pupil enrollment and then local property evaluations are key variables in how the state determines how much money each school unit is going to receive in terms of state support for local education. And whatever the state doesn't provide, then the locals need to raise. And so what had been happening is, as we saw this trend of declining total pupil enrollments, and then the periodic increases in property valuations, we were faced with difficult decisions in terms of how much funding to look at, asking from the locals how much staffing that we needed to provide a good quality education for our students, but while also keeping the needs of local communities in mind. And so we were really looking at a staffing and programming reductions. I know that I've had 3 children. I still have 3 children. 2 of them have gone through the system here in SAD 27. We're high school students here at Community High School. My youngest son is a 9th grader. And I can tell you that my 2 older children had fewer opportunities than I did when I was in high school. Not because we're not doing a good quality job, but enrollments and property valuations kind of drive the process. And there were just fewer opportunities for them. And my youngest son is faced with still fewer than his older siblings were. So that was a kind of a discouraging outlook for all 3 school units. And so the school boards and school committees authorized the development of a tri-district strategic plan. And it isn't that we hadn't been doing things cooperatively before, but never to this degree or this extent. And that planning process began in earnest and on a sustained, regular schedule in 2016, continued into 2017. And what's really impressive is that nearly 400 Valley citizens participated, and I believe it was like around 390 total participants in the process. And some of those participants represented our local businesses and employers. Municipal officials and staff were at the table. School officials and staff were at the table. And I'm really proud to tell you that a total of 60 high school students, 20 from each of the 3 school units, took part in the process as well. And from all of the dialogue that was generated, all of the ideas that were discussed, all of the data that was reviewed, there emerged 8 strategic priorities, and those were brought together into a comprehensive report. And that is right-sizing education in the Upper St. John Valley. And I'm going to just kind of open this report and just review some critical pieces very, very briefly. But I think what made this tri-district strategic planning process different from others that I had participated in over my years in education, and actually even did some in a couple of brief stints in social services, it was that it used the appreciative inquiry process. And that's a process that doesn't simply focus on the problems. There's a foregone conclusion that we are facing some challenges, but what it tries to do is identify what strengths that we have, what we're doing well, so that we can optimize our use of those things that we do well in the interests of constructively addressing our problems. And it really includes 4 key variables: identification of strengths, a consideration of opportunities, and certainly an evaluation of aspirations, and then a determination as to how we're going to measure our results. And you can see that there was a large strategic planning steering committee with a couple of alternates available. And then there were several different meetings held with different constituencies. And you can see, and again, what I'm really happy about here is that 20 students from each of the school units, as being primary constituents of our services, were asked for their input and their views, and they did a really remarkable job in exercising their voice and giving their input. And then we have the 8 priorities, which we'll look at a little bit more closely, actually a lot more closely as we go through this. And then in addition to the priorities, some suggested objectives were identified as well. So it was a very comprehensive, well done, and well thought out process. So I just wanted to share that with you. If you're interested in looking at that report, you can email me and I can send you an electronic copy. I can prepare a paper copy for you and arrange for you to pick it up here at the continuing ed office. I can mail it to you, but it's very, very well done, and it's all put together in about 12 pages, so it's not a cumbersome read. And let's take a closer look at the strategic priorities. You can see, and this is not in any particular order necessarily that I know of. They were just laid out in this manner, but I don't think they're rank ordered. But certainly one was high school regionalization. There was a commitment to retaining an elementary school in each district. We wanted to continue our work toward forming a single Valley Unified adult and continuing education program. That's something that had started before the strategic planning process as a result of changes at the state level. But it certainly made sense to include that as one of our initiatives. We wanted to look at a shared administrative structure, optimizing the use of the St. John Valley Technology Center, which is a hidden jewel. I know that Kevin Lavoie did a session for you. Can't remember if it was this fall or earlier this winter, but doing an incredible job over there. And we'll talk about a number of things that have been accomplished at the Tech Center. We wanted to optimize collaboration with UMFK and Northern Maine Community College, especially around early post-secondary access. Wanted to accentuate and build upon and expand connections with the community. And we wanted to optimize our use of technology, not to replace human interaction, but rather to enhance the type of human interaction that could take place, that could lead to deeper learning by allowing students to do some learning on their own and then leave room for rich and kind of robust discussions amongst students in their teams and then between students and teachers. And that was all done in the interests of preparing future-ready students. And the students of today need to have skills that many of us never imagined needing as we were going through school. Life was a lot simpler. I think opportunities were more abundant. And there were a variety of jobs and careers that people could access that don't exist today. And it's a much more competitive and complex future that we're preparing our young people for. And we can't wait till 11th and 12th grade. We really need to start focusing on future-ready students at a very early age in order to accomplish all that we need to. So I just want to look at that a little more closely, this whole notion of future-ready students. And all of the research, or most of the research, really identifies the reality that future-ready students will not only be recognized for academic achievement, but that they will also possess information technology and media skills, and that they are going to need to possess certain essential life and career characteristics. And they have to have skills around learning and innovation that are critically important in the workplace and in today's world, really. And so I just want to take a closer look at each of those future-ready skill sets. So now when we're talking about academic achievement, it's not the traditional notion of content knowledge that's driven by the 3 R's, the reading, the writing, the arithmetic, but they need to be very socially conscious, historically aware individuals, and not only being able to recite back the knowledge that we provide to them, and the knowledge that we determine that they need to know, but they need to be able to demonstrate proficiency also with content standards. And they're also a group of young people that need to learn content and be able to demonstrate proficiency with standards associated with financial literacy, because simply the cost of post-secondary education, for example. I've been doing a lot of research on that. The average debt carried by a post-secondary completer in the state of Maine right now is approaching $35,000. That's before you get started. You owe $35,000. The total annual college or post-secondary debt in the state of Maine, total annual post-secondary debt is near $6 billion. So folks, we really need to introduce financial literacy early and revisit it often in order for people to understand developing a budget, planning a career where you can measure a salary versus what you value as part of a quality life, and so that people are not continually incurring debt and having negative savings as they approach retirement. It's a scary prospect, but it's happening. And we also want to again increase access to early post-secondary education while students are still in high school through advanced placement courses and dual credit early college courses. I'll talk to you more about a plan that we have for that. And as part of that process, we want them to be able to earn occupational certifications and endorsements while they're still in high school. And we think that if we're going to effectively prepare people who can be knowledgeable decision makers about careers that interest them and that will meet and address their life's goals, including goals for quality of life, that we need to start introducing very focused career pathways while students navigate the traditional content. And in that process, we need to rely heavily on technology because it frees our educators up not only to deliver content, but to facilitate the learning of students as they acquire the skills to process their own content, some of which entails digital literacy, knowing how to use a variety of technology tools in order to accomplish certain tasks, but also knowing how to be discerning and discriminating consumers of all the information that is available digitally to them right now. And that entails, some media literacy skills, which really involves assessing and analyzing the quality of your information sources. And for that, we really are striving for a one-to-one focus. That means ready access to at least one technology device for every student. So that's something that we've been working real hard on. And thank God we have been doing it, because that saved our skin during the pandemic. We were able to implement in very short order, 2 days' time, a remote learning plan, because we had access to technology. And we learned a lot about what our challenges were, but also what our strengths were. And we were able to build our capacity to deal with both remote learning, hybrid learning, and in-school learning during this school year. And we've experienced all three models. The learning and innovation skills, what we call the 4 C's, critical thinking, creativity, communication, and collaboration. And in order for all of those to work real effectively as problem solving and decision-making tools, people also need to be skilled in conflict resolution, and recognizing that conflict isn't a bad thing. We just need to identify what our points of conflict are before we can decide around a consensus as to how to move forward. And then finally, the life and career characteristics. In order for learning and innovation skills to really take effect, students need to be able to practice self-awareness, self-management, and in this age of immediate gratification, we also need to be able to instill in them a sense of perseverance, grit, and determination through their learning experiences. And we, in part, want to do that by identifying opportunities for them to serve their communities, not only through community service activities, which are important, but also through project-based learning activities, which I'll touch on a little bit more as we go. Now, I've done a lot of talking. I can't see any of your faces. Does anyone have any questions? Is anyone still here?
I'm still here.
Okay. You're the only one, Bill?
I guess so.
Okay.
So you and me, Pete.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure you're the only ones.
Okay.
Okay.
Everybody's here.
All right. So let's take a look at each of the strategic priorities in the plan. And we'll start with the 8th priority, optimizing technology, because that's been such a central focus of so much of the work that we did, last year. The final, 8 days of the school year were professional development devoted to technology, and technology continues to be a PD focus for us this year. The objectives around this particular priority were to continue to invest in and support the integration of 21st century technology into our educational, but also our administrative practices, and to be able to utilize technology to maintain those close, familial, and a personalized approach also to education. So when we talk about technology, it's not about replacing people, it's about giving people more time to do what they do best. So that's critically important to establish, and that I would ask you to remember that in particular. And key outcomes, we have reached a point where all of our learners, pre-K through 12, have ready access to a technology device to facilitate their learning. And that ranges from, iPads in the, early elementary grades, where, different learning games can be loaded, and students can work individually on different skill sets using those games, all the way up to, our MacBook Airs that all of our middle school and our high school students have available to them and have had available to them for quite some time. But we've also recently purchased clear touch screens. It's like having an iPad on your wall. A touch of a button, you can just introduce so many different learning activities. And this is all, relatively new, but it's a continued focus of ours to make sure that our students, as well as our staff, have that 21st century learning technology available to them. We continue to use PowerSchool for student and family connections. Students can go in, monitor, where they're at with their assignments. Parents are given login credentials, can go in and monitor their students' progress. We don't have to wait for parents' nights or, parent conferences anymore. And Empower is being used as a learning management system where all of the learning standards are listed and students' progress toward achieving those learning standards, which are associated with each of the courses that they're taking, that can be readily tracked, and teachers and students use that on a regular basis. We've also introduced career-focused blended learning asynchronous online elective courses through our access to a Plato PLE online course platform. And I'll click very quickly on this and just take you to my account just to give you a sense of the broad range of opportunities that are available to our students. So I'm going to click here on courseware, and that'll take me to the menu. First, I'll shut this. That'll take me to a menu, and I'll go to the course catalog. So I'm just going to scroll very, very quickly through this, and you get a sense there are a number of courses that are ready-made. And I'm just going to pause right here because I can take any course on this Plato platform and I can custom design that course to what I want my students or our students to be studying from the content that is available from this pre-made course. And if I want to accentuate or even replace some of the learning activities, I can do that. I have the option of adding my own activities. And it's really been a godsend for us. And we have, in terms of custom designed courses for every core course, the Englishes, the social studies, the maths, the science, we have custom designed courses available for continuing education learners. And we also use them for our alternative schooling learners. And then we have created, again, these custom designed career focused electives. And I'm going to see if I can find one very quickly for you. If not, I can find one later. Yeah, I'll show you. I'll show you one later. But we have custom designed 14 after polling students to see what kinds of courses they would be interested in. I think they identified 16, and to date we've been able to custom design 14 courses. And so students across the 3 high schools are taking these on a regular basis each semester. And it's helping them make some decisions about careers as well. So we're pretty excited about that. I talked to a young lady from Madawaska who has a goal of becoming a medical doctor. And so she took a custom design course in healthcare career preparation. And I just had the opportunity to say, so what did you think? And she said, wow, I had no idea how expansive it was. So she said that was very informative and very useful to me. So we're really excited about those and want to continue building on that capacity. We also recently purchased, because of the pandemic and our inability to do any travel for professional development, we purchased, and this was a joint purchase by all 3 school units, an online platform for teacher professional development. And it's referred to as Otis for Educators. And there are any number of professional development topics available for educators, recorded sessions, online sessions. And what's really nice is there's also a schedule of upcoming courses, and they're all scheduled into a calendar so our staff can go in and register. And it's been amazing for our education technicians in particular. This has met so many of their discrete and unique needs, and they've been just very avid consumers of the content available on Otis, as have many of our classroom teachers as well. And we have administrators who will do playlists of professional development that has been identified as critical for their schools or their staff. And then they'll send that out and then give people timelines within which to complete them. So it's been a very rich opportunity. And in addition to that, we've also created our own PD portal, especially for topics related to remote learning, so that our staff can go in and receive updated professional development. And we still value, face-to-face, in-person PD. We haven't been able to do it for a while, but what we've been doing is trying to bring national caliber professional development here to the St. John Valley, so that all people can profit, rather than sending small teams of people out to professional development. And so one of the last speakers that we had here, in fact, the last speaker, I believe, was Tom Murray. And Tom is a nationally recognized speaker in very high demand at national conferences consistently. And he's authored a number of books. He was here in, I believe, 2019, the fall of 2019, to talk to us about preparing tomorrow's schools today. And his work influences a lot of what we do now. Tom recently authored another book, Personal and Authentic. And that's, in fact, I'm reading that now, and it's a dynamite read. We've also decided that we want to use technology to capture what people learn when they do go to professional development, so that we can ensure the broadest possible return on our investment. We still want to send people out to face-to-face professional development when just excellent opportunities are available, but we can never really send everyone. So what we've done is kind of create a template now. We've piloted this with a couple of groups, and I piloted it with a group that I did some training on, but people now, whether as individuals or as teams, describe the training, their name and school, and then they do some goal setting. And we want them to identify at least 3 long-term goals with 3 small win strategies that will outline how they're going to use the training in particular, but also they have to have a plan for sharing their training and their outcomes and results at local professional development days with their peers. So, and again, that's all on ensuring a return on investment for our professional development. So that's where we are with strategic priority 8. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that without this access to technology, we would have been lost during the initial stages of the pandemic, and we would still be struggling mightily. And there are schools across our country where the lost learning, I don't think it's even calculable anymore, because they don't have the kind of access to technology that we do. So it's been critical even this year to our successful transition from in-school to remote to hybrid, and then back to in-school, and then lately Wisdom High School had to go back on remote learning. So without our access to technology, we wouldn't be able to make those transitions as quickly and nimbly and capably as we have. Staff training was a big focus the last 8 days of the school year calendar last year. And PD on technology continues. And that's because with CARES Act, coronavirus relief funding, and now ESSER's allocations, there's a lot of money coming to our school districts, and it's enabling us to make technology purchases that will be invaluable to us for the foreseeable future. Any question about strategic priority 8? Hearing none, I'll continue. So strategic priority 7, community connections. The objectives were to build working relationships with community organizations, businesses, employers, parents, and families to enhance experiential learning opportunities for all of our learners, and to bring community and workforce perspectives into our schools and our programs and classes. And what we've been able to accomplish so far, and one of the very initial accomplishments relative to this priority and these objectives, was that the St. John Valley, l'Association Française, helped us fund the position of an elementary French language and cultural heritage integrator, who works with all 3 of our elementary schools to ensure that students have exposure to the French language and to our Franco-American Acadian heritage as well. So they paid up to 50% of that staff person's salary in the initial year, provided an important seed for us to be able to get that going. Whoops, sorry about that. I'm going to back up. The other thing that we've done is we really feel that job shadow and internship experiences need to be an opportunity that any high school student who wants to will have. And you know, right now I think job shadow experiences occur at most of our high schools, you know, for all students at different times, but we'd like them to be able to experience multiple job shadow experiences and also internships. So I met together, one of my roles was to meet together with the principals, our JMG coordinator, that's jobs for Maine graduates, our director of the St. John Valley Technology Center, and to look at what we were all doing relative to internships, you know, guidelines, applications, business school program agreements, participant timesheets, skills assessment forms, both weekly and summative, and what our expectations were. And so we came up with a list of consistent guidelines. We developed an electronic application form for students to complete, and provides us with all the information that we need. Sorry, that's going a little slowly. And we have them fill out this application and share it with any community-based mentor who's going to be working with them, so that they have a sense of their work history, some of their skills, and their knowledge of teamwork, confidentiality, things like that. So we want them basically interviewing for their internship experience, because that's a valuable life skill moving forward. So that's an example of the kinds of things that we've done in that regard. Okay, so far?
Yes.
Okay, great. We were developing a preliminary plan to include employer panels at professional development days for all teachers. A lot of groups are working real hard to make education to industry connections, and they're hosting a lot of events to get dialogue going. But the continuity of that dialogue and any sustainable planning is a challenge. So we have enough professional development days that we want to be able to take at least some of them and bring these employer panels in and start each of our sessions with information on what they look for in an employee. Not only education and training, but skills, qualities, characteristics, so that we get a sense of what it is we really need to do to prepare students, and we hear it firsthand from local employers. And I showed you our return on investment planning form and a little bit earlier, and told you that I had actually piloted this with a group. And this is just an example of some of the results that came together from the work that we were doing. And we did want to have an employer panel. Initially, we were looking at a January 2 or January 3 PD day. That had to be changed to the March date. But we had decided who the people were going to be for this inaugural one, and we're ready to reach out for them. We had specific guidance for them in terms of, what we wanted them to cover. And this was all a result of a professional development activity that we had taken part in, me and this team of 3 teachers. And we were planning to roll that out, as it turns out, in March, but also, as it turns out, we shut down in March because of the pandemic. But we do have a process in place, and we want to make this a regular activity so that we're constantly thinking about what our employers need, and that we're also informing our teachers regarding the kinds of employment opportunities that are available for students in this region, because they're a critical influencer audience who students will listen to, and they can be sharing with students information about these opportunities, because our local employers are struggling to find people with the skills and training necessary to fill jobs that are vacant and that we anticipate will soon become vacant because people are on the verge of retirement. In terms of community connections too, I told you earlier that we do want students to engage in community service, but we also want them to engage in project-based learning activities. So one of my responsibilities and my role was to research project-based learning activities and to basically come up with a kind of a one-stop resource for our teachers to be able to consult, rather than them having to sift through the research, me doing the research for them, and then creating this guide for them, which includes an introduction to what project-based learning is, and then distinguishing project-based learning from projects, and both have their place. They just accomplish different objectives. And projects are critically important gateways to project-based learning. So we can never stop doing projects, but we want them to be a gateway to, I guess, deeper, more service-oriented kinds of learning activities. So I pulled this information together, created it for our staff, and just included all sorts of links that they can access links and articles that help them plan gold standard project-based learning activities with their students as full partners in the planning and the ongoing evaluation process. And part of that was actually going out to local businesses and community organizations and getting feedback on ideas for project-based learning opportunities. So that's all available, again, through a one-stop guide. Other examples, we recently contracted with Northern Maine Medical Center for school physician services. They work with our 6 school nurses and provide a full range of services at all of the schools in our district. One provider, does it all, and that's led to a lot of consistency. And I mean, Northern Maine Medical Center is a quality healthcare facility, lots of quality staff. Sorry about that. So we're happy to have them. We've also accessed Aroostook Mental Health Center to provide state mandated training to our students on sexual abuse. Rather than training our own trainers and having a constant turnover and having to retrain them, we developed this agreement with AMHC to come in and provide those services. And now our teachers can be active members of that audience, getting the same information as their students, and can reinforce that learning. And then we've done a lot of work around keeping people informed about the school reintegration process. We've created a website. The superintendent of schools actually did this, and all of our resources regarding school integration can be accessed here. And we do regular posts on our school Facebook pages, our school web pages, the Valley Unified Facebook page, Valley Unified blog. So we're trying to keep as much information out there as we can about what's happening in the district. And of course, we also advertised the recent appointment of Mr. Kevin Anderson, longtime middle school teacher here in SAD 27, to the position of Dean of Students at Fort Kent Elementary School beginning next fall, replacing Paul Misha, who is retiring. So this is what we've been trying to do in terms of ensuring a consistent flow of information to and from our communities and engagement of our schools and students and teachers in the community. Been interrupted by the pandemic, but we're still very much committed to it. Any questions? Okay. So strategic priority 6, collaborating with UMFK and Northern Maine Community College. We wanted to work with University of Maine at Fort Kent to expand upon the current early college dual enrollment opportunities and options that we have, and also wanted to enter into a formal and more extensive collaboration with Northern Maine Community College to develop programs that allow for seamless career and technical transitions for students who want those hands-on trade and technical degrees and certificates. The key work and outcome that have been achieved to date are very preliminary, but I can tell you that we've been working with both UMFK and NMCC in terms of expanding opportunities, and I've had the opportunity to work with the staff at UMFK to develop kind of a menu option for early college that would replace the current cohort model, and then I guess more formalize but still keep flexible options for students to pursue early college at a variety of levels, including experimentation, examination. Experimentation is, I'm interested, I want to try a course, not sure if I want to do more, really don't have a particular end goal in mind, not even sure if I want to go to college, this might help me decide. Then we have students who, yeah, they're pretty certain college is part of their plan, or post-secondary training is part of their plan. They might have one or two interests and they want to access a few courses as a career decision-making tool. Then we're looking at, expedition. These are students who know that post-secondary education is part of their future, and they would like to expedite their capacity to earn a credential, at least an occupational credential or a rural U workforce development certificate before they graduate from high school, and in the process earn approximately a semester's worth of credits before they leave the high school. And then we're looking at an elevation level, and this would be for the highly motivated student, knows without any doubt post-secondary education and training is what I want to do, and I know that for what I want to do, I need a 4-year degree. So I'd like the opportunity to earn an associate degree, a full associate degree, by the time I graduate from high school. And these students would have to commit also to summer study. Very preliminary. I can tell you that the word I get from the community education office at UMFK is that the entire cabinet is interested and enthused about this process. And developing this partnership, expanding upon our partnerships, and creating more options for students, not only here in SAD 27, but also at Wisdom Middle High School and Madawaska Middle High School. And then part of this planning process has also involved the formation of a CTE, or Career and Technical Education to Skills Trades partnership between the St. John Valley Technology Center and Northern Maine Community College. And we've identified programs that have some level of articulation now, and we'd like to build and expand upon them so that students could leave their programming at the St. John Valley Technology Center, and they would have at least 1 semester's worth of work toward either an associate degree at Northern Maine Community College or a 1-year certificate program at Northern Maine Community College by the time that they graduate from high school. So that's our preliminary planning. This is multi-year. We don't know how much of this is going to be possible. I know that Northern Maine Community College is interested in pursuing this opportunity, but it's going to be at least 3 years before we can roll this out completely. And my guess is there'll be another couple of years where we'll have to make some adjustments and adaptations. But it's an exciting prospect, and it's really important. And I've touched upon these points for the most part, but it's really important for the reasons, some of which I've already discussed and touched upon earlier, and that's the total annual college debt in Maine and the average college debt carried by post-secondary graduates in Maine. But this is the critical thing that we need to keep thinking about, because these are the backbones of our local economies. Business and employers are experiencing current and looming shortages of qualified candidates. So this, to me, addresses the whole issue of college debt, and it also addresses workforce needs, and that's what really excites me about this potential process. And I talked earlier about for this to really work, that we need to give students access to kind of career pathways academies, and so we're thinking very preliminarily about an academy for business and financial studies, health and public service studies, industry and infrastructure studies, and communication, education and technology studies as pathways that we might want to make available to our students. And here are some of the courses that they could take as electives in those pathways. But interestingly enough, we're also looking at making sure that a lot of these courses meet social studies requirements, meet science requirements, meet math requirements. And we've done that quite well with some courses, and need to do some work with others. But I'll just show you an example of a pathway, and this would be with the University of Maine at Fort Kent, for example. We could actually have students tackling some level of medical terminology as early as freshman year, and they might also be looking at a survey course in healthcare career preparation, as well as taking core courses. And then that would just continue along. As sophomores, they can begin taking early college courses through an early college plus model, which means that they have a school-based learning manager. So they have a college professor who's handling the content matters, but we have somebody here on our campus who is helping them learn how to learn at the college level, how to break up the content into manageable chunks so that they can keep up with the syllabus and move forward accordingly. There's a reason that colleges and universities lose about 50% of their entering students on a consistent basis. College isn't easy, and it requires skill sets. And I think we need to teach purposefully to those skill sets. I don't think we prepare students by throwing more content at them. I think we can narrow the content, but help them navigate it. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Talk to you about some of these electives. And I'll just show you, here's the, or should be, the syllabus, for example, syllabus and pacing guide for healthcare career preparation. And this is available, and this has been our most popular course so far. A number of students have taken this. And so we kind of lay out all of the expectations. How do you get started? And then we tell them, okay, you're going to be rated according to your level of proficiency with these standards, so that they know going in, you know, these are going to be the expectations of me. And so we make them aware of that. Oh, sorry, I'll go back. Too many links. I'll do this very quickly. If I can find it. Maybe not so quickly. So I'll go back in here. And I'll show you just an example of how we chunk things out for them very deliberately. Week 1, here's what you should be looking at completing. Week 2, very explicit. And then we have job shadow, a requirement in this course, and they have to report out on that job shadow experience. And we even ask them to complete a course evaluation. And I can tell you, we've done the course evaluation twice with this course and made improvements based on student input. So it's intended to be, these courses are intended to be very responsive to student input and decision making. So is that thorough enough? I notice it's 8 o'clock. And we have more. Are there any questions?
I don't have any specific questions. There's an awful lot of information here, Peter. You're right.
I know, and I'm giving you the broad swath. But you know, if you need me to slow down or just stop, you know, I can do that. Just you know, I want this to be informative for you and not necessarily overwhelming.
Peter, under number 6, the collaboration part of things.
Yep.
What higher learning institutes in our state are accepting credits from, and I don't know if I'm using the right terminology, from the Rural U, that's a Rural U program?
Yep, absolutely. And that's an excellent question, Don. So what happens is when we do this through a concurrent enrollment model, where either we have an approved instructor, somebody on our campus or any one of the high school campuses who meets criteria to become an adjunct instructor at UMFK, then we can do a concurrent enrollment program, okay, which means that becomes part of a transcript at UMFK. But when the student, let's say the student applies to the University of Maine at Orono, or even Northern Maine Community College, and they've taken General Psych and they've taken English Comp 1, let's say those are the two courses that they have, then they request a transcript from UMFK, and then that follows them to the sending school. As long as they have a grade of C or above, that will be accepted in transfer credit. So they go on to the University of Maine system, and many of those courses also apply at the Maine Community College system. And it would be the same thing for an NMCC course if they were moving from NMCC's automotive technology program to the one at Eastern Maine Community College, and it was a concurrent enrollment opportunity, then that credit would follow them. If it's articulated credit, and a couple of our selectives are, the only way you ever realize college credit is if you go to UMFK or you go to NMCC, and it doesn't follow you until you've done, I believe, at least a semester or maybe a year of study at either one of those institutions before you transfer. So if we've got the concurrent enrollment, we're pretty good within the University of Maine system and the community college system. I don't know beyond that, but I'm sure there are, places like Unity College, Thomas College that are, accepting transfer credits, at least for the 100 and 200 level courses, the more introductory level gen eds.
Yeah.
Am I making sense?
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Peter?
Yes, sir.
Peter, as I look through all of these strategic plans,
yep,
and the priorities, the key to all of this is technology.
Yeah, it's critical.
And has it forced the districts, and I do mean forced, to kind of standardize technologies to certain platforms, at least to make it easier for families, for teachers, and presenters for that matter. I mean, we're talking about national presenters speaking on a subject instead of sending somebody to a conference. There has to be a kind of a standardizing Bill Gates approach to standardized technology. Yeah,
and that's certainly something that that we've discussed because there are a lot of different platforms. But it hasn't happened yet. We haven't been forced yet because I know that when our students in any one of our 3 high schools were doing courses through UMFK, for a long time they were using Blackboard. And now they've made the switch to Brightspace, which I personally used, and I think it's much more intuitive than Blackboard, and like it a lot. So I applaud that move. And so that's out there. So it hasn't forced us to do that because the platform's being used by, in this instance, the early college programs. They're making adjustments to make them easier to access and easier to navigate. But it is a discussion that we're having, and that it's something that we're considering as we get deeper and deeper into this and we look to expand our capacity.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So just want to talk a little bit about what we've been able to do at the St. John Valley Technology Center. The objectives there were to review, align, and change the programming at the Tech Center to match current and emerging workforce demands, and to utilize the center for other forms of shared curricula, whether extracurricular or co-curricular, and hands-on learning opportunities. And we now have an 8th grade career exploration program at the Tech Center. Every 8th grader from every middle school spends 1 quarter at the Tech Center per year. They do a career exploration program, a health program. They get CTE exposure, and they also work in an innovation lab, which is, you know, really kind of hands-on, fun learning activities that they can do individually, but also collaboratively to start developing some of those problem solving and creative thinking skills, working as part of a group and developing consensus through resolving conflict. We also have an alternative schooling site at the Tech Center that serves students from Wisdom Middle High School and Madawaska Middle High School. It's patterned after the alternative schooling program TOPS Academy, which also includes a hybrid learning option for younger students. I was able to create that through continuing ed here in SAD 27. And when I took on this new role, I was asked to replicate that for Madawaska and 33 at the Tech Center. So that takes place there. Last year, a brand new forest resource management program was brought into play to address the need for qualified tradespeople in the forest products industry, anything from foresters to woodcutters, machine operators. This year, 2 new programs were brought online: electrical construction and heavy equipment operation. And last year, this was interrupted by the pandemic, but we did a manufacturing pilot program starting in second semester with, I think, 6 10th graders from the 3 different school units. And of course, in March, that kind of all, fell to pieces. But it was done specifically to address the need for skilled tradespeople at Twin Rivers in Madawaska. So we did that in collaboration with Washington County Community College. And we had a high school level preparatory intro to manufacturing program, which led into some Washington County Community College courses, which in turn led to a certification as a certified production technician. It has stalled, but we continue to examine that and revisit it and would like to bring it back online. We're just trying to figure out the optimal way to do that. And under the topic of, innovation, I don't know how innovative this was, but one thing that we realized, Kevin Leroy and I, is that, geez, we don't have a single brochure for all of our programs at the St. John Valley Technology Center. And that's critical to marketing to students and also influencer audiences, namely parents and teachers and other school officials. So we created a brochure. What's a little bit different from this one is we don't do paper copies. We give everyone an online link, and this brochure can be updated on the spot. Anytime a change is made, we can go in and update it. And then we have links right here in the table of contents to the different programs. If someone is pretty sure what they want, they don't have to scroll through everything. We have links to a program video. And we remind them several times, hey, if you haven't watched the video, please do so now. We list our articulation agreements. And then we have descriptions of each of our programs. But what we try to do is let them know the different kinds of careers they can prepare for, the full range of careers, and also the different kinds of college majors that they can pursue if they choose post-secondary education and training. So we're really trying to market the trades. Skilled tradespeople are in very limited supply right now, locally in Maine and across the country. And that's going to have a dramatic effect on our economy if we don't start tackling it. So that's kind of where we are with the Tech Center. Relative to shared administrative structure, we wanted to develop an organizational structure that allowed for immediate implementation of shared administration and a variety of services and personnel and programs. And We now have one superintendent of schools for 3 school units. He also serves as the executive director of the Valley Unified Education Service Center. Our central office services are now all under one management structure. And Lucy Tabor, who began her career in this area as the director of finance for SAD 27, now serves that role for all 3 school units. And the 3 school units share services and the costs of the positions of assistant superintendent, the director of finance, my position, coordinator of innovation and community outreach, curriculum coordinator, and a food service director. So really, working hard to create some financial efficiencies there, and then some consistency across the board. And the state of Maine rewards us. They pay up to 55% of the executive director superintendent's salary and benefits, and 100% of the cost for Empower and our central office financial system. So the state is incentivizing these initiatives. Adult and continuing ed, we wanted to develop a combined program, and we were able to do that. Again, as I shared with you, that process had started just shortly before the strategic planning process got underway. And so it was the first of the 8 priorities that was accomplished because work had already been done. We now have one program with 2 fully functioning sites, one director who oversees both programs. The programs share students and the cost of both support service and instructional staff. And as part of the new state initiative, our Valley Unified Continuing Ed program is also constantly exploring additional partnerships with other Aroostook County community programs to create additional efficiencies. Right now, the programs are cooperating to deliver one county-wide CNA training program with the didactic portion done online, and then local face-to-face, in-person clinical experiences. So we've come a long way. And strategic priority 2, elementary education. The commitment was to maintain one elementary school, pre-K through 8 in each school unit, and to continue to make early education our primary focus because they're the foundational years. And the initial pre-K through 8 elementary school designation was adjusted to pre-K through 6, which only made sense because all of our elementary schools are currently pre-K through 6. There are Project Rise programs, which are multi-grade levels that are team taught, multi-grade level classrooms that are team taught with a very open classroom atmosphere, lot of small group work. Teachers introduce concepts to small groups and then rotate around the class. Fascinating to watch. I've seen both of them in action, and it's incredible. The agency and the responsibility and the ownership these kids take for their learning is remarkable. And at Dr. Levac Elementary School, they've adopted kind of the same approach, but focused on math. We have an elementary school curriculum leadership team, and each school is represented by 2 members who work with the principal and the staff to plan professional development initiatives and give feedback on implementation of different reading programs, math programs. It's very communication oriented, shared ownership, shared responsibility. And teachers are working together, across school units. Grade level teachers are getting together. They're identifying common learning progressions, common standards, and objectives for proficiency-based learning. A lot of great collaboration occurring. And then each school is really examining data quite closely and cultivating that data and really mining that data not only to say, oh, there's an issue, but to find out what is the issue, and then to develop solutions. And then they share strategies across schools and across school units. So it's been a very enriching experience. And then finally, high school regionalization. And certainly, this has been the most talked about, discussed, and dissected aspect of our plan. The plan was to move grades 9 through 12 initially, and then eventually became 7 through 12 into one regionalized high school and career and tech ed center. Our key outcomes to date, initially, the Valley Unified Regional School was included on the State Board of Education approved construction project list. A 17-member site selection committee worked with project engineers and a project consultant to identify an optimal site, and they all worked real hard and did great work. My kudos go out to the site selection committee members because it was a very involved process. We held public hearings and straw polls on the proposed Frenchville school site. Then we learned that an RSU, or a regional school unit governance structure, was going to be required because state legislation did not prohibit, but also did not expressly permit an education service center to operate a school. So that was interesting. And there were think tank meetings, mediation sessions, toward that end. Eventually, not enough time to, resolve, points of conflict, and not a bad thing. It was a real thorough examination of the entire interlocal agreement and the voter representation sharing process. And we could not come to accord, and as a result, not commit to the formation of an RSU, or to even enter the RSU formation process. And so the school was removed from the approved construction project list. So relative to that, let me just say again that I recognize that the school project was always the most visible, discussed, and dissected priority in the strategic plan, but it was still just one of 8 priorities. And if we could have moved forward to the next phase, that did not carry a guarantee that the final project would have been approved by the voters. We were at step 6. This is a 21-step process. And that final milestone would have been additional public hearings, not just on the site, but on the project design, and then a local referendum. And I can tell you, as someone who is intimately involved in the process and associated with it, and recognized as being associated with it, while I heard a lot of support for the school, I also heard from many parties that reflected significant worry about the impact on our local communities, about closing our current middle high schools. Lots of concern about increased taxes, concerns about lost teaching jobs. Those concerns were real, and would have persisted, and would have continued to impact the project. So there is no guarantee that we would have gotten that school. And while many school projects have been funded, there have been 2 others that looked at a model like ours that were not successful. And our project actually went further. And that is because a lot of great work has been accomplished on the 7 other priorities, and a lot of activity continues. And the vision for future ready students can and is continuing to be addressed. We've made a lot of gains, still lots of work to do, but I can tell you our schools and our staff, by and large, have enjoyed the opportunity to work together and all believe that they have benefited, at least the ones that I speak to. And they've really enjoyed peer-led professional development, informal strategy discussions. And many of them feel like it's kind of relieved the isolation and promoted a higher degree of student-centered practice. So those are enviable outcomes, and we're not done yet. We're going to continue to monitor our progress and continue to try to move forward. You know, here at the Valley Unified Education Service Center, those are our goals: is to keep striving and keep trying to prepare our students for a future that's significantly different from one that any of us probably ever imagined. And I'm going to stop talking. And I'm only 25 minutes over time. Jeez, I'm slowing down, huh, Don Murray?
I think you did very well, Peter. And I was very pleased to see that we've got 7/8 of the pie are still there.
Yeah, and activity is occurring on an ongoing basis, and you know, I'm hoping that we continue to work. I think it's benefited everyone, and we'll see where the future brings us.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been good, and the demographics that brought us to the table aren't changing. So the need still exists, and I think there's an appetite across the board for at least some level of collaboration, and we're going to have to continue to examine, you know, what that looks like, and we should. That's the responsible thing to do. So we will continue to revisit it and update, and I hope I'll have an opportunity to share with you additional information at some point in the future. I have one condition, though, that that only Reggie Murray attend.
I'll be there.
Can I make a couple comments?
Yeah, I don't think you can.
Don Murray, this session's being recorded. Okay, so be careful.
On a serious note, I found that it's amazing how focused our district has been and remains to be throughout the pandemic. And I think a lot of the things that the unified group went through had everybody on their toes already, and really kind of carried over to that, I believe. And so I think our Valley schools, all of them, seem to be well prepared for the unique learning experiences that they're having right now, as good as could be expected. And I think there's a lot of kudos goes out to everybody in the district who's been working hard on that. The other thing that I think also is that you and all of the members of Valley Unified who have been working on this throughout the pandemic, I think that you all need to be very proud of what's going on and what you have accomplished. This is an amazing amount of information that you've just given us.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel fortunate to have listened to it and got that. And I hope a lot more people are hearing that too. It's a lot of information to take in.
It is. It is.
For sure. And I don't know how you transfer that over to the students and staff, but I mean, I know they hear this, but it's hard to take it all in, for sure.
Yes. Yep. And I think that, you know, realistically, you know, for us to do a real effective job to help people reflect on how far we've come, that we really need to, you know, break it out into maybe, you know, 1 or 2 priorities at a time, and then just have a regular series. And so we're thinking about that too, because I think it's really essential. And, you know, I think of the people, you know, in the classrooms, Dawn, and I mean, you spent your career in a classroom, and you know how challenging that is. And those challenges You know, they're not going away. It's a new set of challenges all the time. And now we add the pandemic onto that, and the work that these teachers have been able to accomplish with students and the building administrators, just, you know, responding to the needs of students and staff and parents on an ongoing basis. And the leadership provided by, you know, our superintendent of schools, and you know, with important support coming from the assistant superintendent and our director of finance and a lot of other critical staff. It's just people have rallied around this, and we've never felt like we're going it alone. You know, when we were doing professional development, people from Madawaska were sharing with us, okay, this is, you know, how I use the, you know, the Go cameras, and this is how I use this. And then we had people from this district sharing what they were doing. And the folks from 33 were saying, well, we're doing it. And it was just, and Sharon Chassis is in all of these schools all the time. And so she's saying, oh, I think, you know, I'm going to approach so-and-so. I think this person could do a good job with that. And then she and I are trying to pull together agendas, but it's very much a team effort. But it starts in each individual classroom with each individual teacher and those ed techs. And I mean, let's not forget what the cooks and the bus drivers did in terms of delivering meals every day. I mean, at one point in the summer, they were at almost, you know, 250,000 meals. It was crazy, you know, just go, go, go. And when we've had to switch to remote learning, they've been right there. And it's been hard, arduous work, but it's just been a can-do attitude and people coming together and problem solving, and it's been amazing. I never imagined that I'd ever have to live through a pandemic, and it was scary as all get out when we were faced with the reality that, okay, it's here and now we got to change everything. But the way people responded in all the schools at all grade levels and across the board, people have just come together and made this happen.
Nice. Very nice.
And we need to celebrate that, but also remind them, now through this all, we've still been able to accomplish all this.
Right.
You know?
Really.
Absolutely.
So it's amazing. So we will figure out a way to chunk that out, Don. I think that's great feedback. I was worried about that coming in, that it was a lot of info. I chose to go broad swath because I wanted to give you
That's what we wanted.
you know, an extent of all the work that's been done, or a view of all the work that's been done and the extent of it. But we have to figure out how to break it up into chunks for other people, and we will do that.
Peter, I've got more than I can digest, but I'll sit there and let it sink in. And I want to thank you very much. It was very informative and very thought-provoking. So, and I'm very impressed with the work that's been done. So, thank you again.
Thank you,
Thank you very
Peter.
much.
Very good.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Peter.
I think
Have a great
I'll say
evening, everyone.
good night, and I'll stop my recording.